We're officially halfway through the UFL season, and it's still anyone's game for the coveted UFL championship. Find out who wins and who loses in this pivotal week 6 of the UFL, and more importantly, how you can cash off the games. Welcome, football fans, to another edition of IDP Plus Bets. What is up, folks? I am your host, the Degen Doc, and that is right, UFL Week 6, the United Football League. We are halfway through the season officially, and what a week to come off of. I mean, an absolutely insane week. Hopefully, you're watching this week. If not, they're running reruns on FS1. Go catch the games. I promise you, you're not going to miss them. Maybe you can skip the Houston-San Antonio game, but 3 absolutely incredible games. Insane week. Let's just go ahead and pop these scores up real quick. We had every single underdog win outright this week. That's right. Memphis, they were 10-plus point underdogs. St. Louis, small underdogs at home. You had Arlington underdogs at home. And then on the road, Houston Roughnecks were 3.5 point underdogs, and they won. They dominated. Insane week. We had all the underdogs winning. We had more points than any other week. We had the game between DC and Arlington that had both most points scored in the entire history of the UFL and the largest comeback of the UFL. So insane week. I mean, that doesn't even count the first game of the slate, a Friday night game between Memphis and Birmingham. We had our first overtime game of the season. We all remember, in case you forgot, the UFL, they're different. So the way they do their overtime is almost like a soccer shootout where you get 3 tries at a 2-point conversion, and whoever gets it gets the most, wins. So, and did I forget to mention, we had a 108-yard kick 6. I mean, an absolutely insane week of the UFL, entertainment-wise, very, very fun. Now, the flip side of this insane week in the UFL was it made it quite a week to handicap here, at least for us. Look, the show, St. Louis really carried it. I really went in on St. Louis, and they kind of helped, only lose 1 or 2 units for the sides. The props, again, this week did not do me any favors. Again, those props are over on the X. So after a very, very solid start to the season, week 1, week 2, we were up over 16 units. Now we're just sitting above 500. We are up just 1.13 units. It's been been a down week. Really, these last 2 weeks have really done me in. But that's all right, folks, because we're halfway through. We're still in the green, and we're ready to go on a heater and go on a run with this UFL Week 6. We've got quarterbacks that are figured out now. We've got more stable situations. And really the cool thing from an entertainment value is, yes, we just had an insane week. And really, every team still has a legitimate shot to make the playoffs. Again, there's only 8 teams. There's 4 playoff spots, so 2-2. No team is really further than 2 games back. So this really kind of is going to make for an exciting finish down the stretch of this season, of this UFL season. And it starts now, right? We're on the back half. So let's go ahead and get into these power rankings here, as I always do each week. So here is my official power rankings heading into UFL Week 6. We've got DC. I think DC is the best team. I'm not quite sure I'm ready to say that right now. They are atop the power rankings because they have the best record and they are top the standings. Sitting at 4-1, they found ways to win even games like this week where they had to go through the largest comeback. I didn't really think they deserved to win, but they got it done. So put them at the top there. Arlington is right behind them, the team that really controlled the game and kind of let it slip away at the end there. Bad turnover, bad fumble, really kind of did them in. Then you got Michigan Panthers with Bryce Perkins, which thankfully, finally, Mike Nolan has decided his 2-quarterback absolute abysmal decision-making of letting Danny Etling touch the field, which was in my handicap last week. That's done. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. But yes, Michigan comes in at 3. Then you got Birmingham, St. Louis, a little bit interchangeable there. We'll see. That'll be an interesting game when they play later in the season. Houston and Memphis are going to play for the second time this week. So we'll kind of decide there. Got to give Houston the edge at this point. And then San Antonio rounds out the bottom there. San Antonio Brahmas are a shell of themselves. Absolute disappointment in every single way. Went from being the best defense in the league to the worst defense in the league. Laughable. Their quarterback situation is a mess. Peyton Party gave them a little bit of a one-game boost, but they got dominated. And I mean dominated by the Houston Roughnecks. I mean, I have not seen the Roughnecks win a game like that. I mean, they barely have won any games in the UFL's history, but they dominated the Brahmas, and I think that speaks a little bit more to what's going on in San Antonio. Houston playing a little bit better, but oof, man, getting beat by 24 in your home opener. Really quick, San Antonio, they had to wait 5 weeks to finally get a home opener. Their home opener was last week. They had, it's Fiesta for those that don't know in San Antonio. It's a great time. It's a big party. It's essentially a Spanish parade, Fiesta. They do parades. The whole town gets into it. I think it's really cool. I was actually able to sit in the press box at the Alamo Dome last Fiesta during a game. It's a really, really good environment. If you're out there, definitely advise you to check it out. But anyway, they have 15,000 fans there, and they got their ass kicked. So, that's definitely disappointing. Hopefully they're able to bounce back for the city. But San Antonio, you are the 8th and garbage team of the power rankings this week. And I think deservedly so. Speaking of, halfway through the season, I think it's an interesting time to take a look at the futures market here. I kind of compared 4 different books between, DraftKings, FanDuel, ESPN Bet, Bet365. That's kind of in my right here in my state that I can use. And there's 2 teams I kind of wanted to get through, the chalk around 3 to, plus 300 and plus 375. You've got Birmingham's, you got St. Louis, and you got DC. I don't really have the trust in any of those teams right now. Birmingham, I don't think, they have the pedigree, but they have not really shown me that they're the same level of Birmingham teams that we've seen in the past. DC, I still have concern with their offense, although they continue to prove me wrong by winning these games here. I still got some concerns with their offense. Losing Ty Scott, I think, is a big deal. And Toronto, he's just inaccurate, I mean, to say the least. And St. Louis lost their starting quarterback and really aren't very effective at throwing the forward pass right now. So really kind of fading them. And then you got your long shot, your 3, between San Antonio, want nothing to do with them at this point. Houston and Memphis, I think that's getting a little bit cute. I think they could be nice in some spots, maybe cover some spreads, but I don't really think they're really even going to make the playoffs, let alone make some noise there. But your middle tier, you've got Michigan, you can get at plus 475. And you got Arlington, you can get at 5-1. I think Michigan is almost a lock to get into the playoffs. I think they're going to easily finish above Houston and Memphis. They should not have an issue with either of those teams. I know Birmingham's been their Achilles heel, but this is not the same Birmingham team. Like I stated, I think they can beat Birmingham and get into the championship. I really like their path to the championship a lot. And then Arlington comes in on that other side of the gauntlet. They play St. Louis again this week. They already beat them a couple weeks ago. That loss to DC is going to hurt a little bit, but I think they can take care of San Antonio. I like Arlington. I think Arlington's the most complete team right now, both offense, defense, run game, pass game. I think they're balanced. I like Luis Perez and the leadership he provides there. So I think Michigan and Arlington, you can both get them around 5-1. Shop around out there because I was pretty surprised. These future prices are. I mean, Michigan can be all the way down in the plus 340. I saw in one book. Over on, I believe it's ESPN Bet, you can get them at plus 475. And then Arlington, I know, Michigan Panthers, 475. That one is DraftKings. And then Arlington at plus 500 is ESPN Bet. So those are the 2 bets that I'm putting a unit on right now. I think both those teams, if I had to play it out, I think they make it to the championship game and kind of battle it out. And I think we're getting a good price here. Obviously DC is the one team they're doing really well right now. I just don't love their price. Again, Birmingham, not the same team they've been. In St. Louis, I don't trust their quarterback situation. So with that being said, let's talk about some of these big news, big information heading into week 6, right? I'll kind of go through it quickly because we're going to get through it when we go our game breakdown. So if you're new to the show, well, Welcome. You made it through the first 10 minutes. Appreciate you checking in. Appreciate you hanging out with us. I'm gonna go game by game here. We're gonna break it down, kind of give you all the factors. Then I'm gonna give my analysis, how I see it going down, and then I'm gonna give my bet. Whether it's the side, the total, both, whatever. What I actually have my money on for each game. Then at the end I'll go through my two best bets, my Degen play, and we'll wrap up and we'll get up on out of here. All right, so rapid fire, the biggest news. Like I alluded to earlier, Mike Nolan has finally decided to essentially get his head out of the sand in the most PG way as I can say it. He's no more two quarterback system. He's going to stop doing the Make a Wish Danny Etling program and letting him get on the field because, as we saw, he'd let him get on the field and he threw the interception that changed the game. I mean, Michigan only lost by one score, and Danny Etling had the only turnover. He overthrew a guy by about 10 yards in interception, and he does it every week. Danny Etling has legitimately led to 0 scoring drives in 5 weeks for the Michigan Panthers. It's all been Bryce Perkins. He's been MVP caliber good. Finally, he's not going to be splitting stats. It's going to be Bryce Perkins. I think every UFL fan can be thankful there. Memphis Showboats activated wide receiver Dawood Davis. He was an all UFL receiver last year. He's an absolute burner. He's going to be back this week. They also signed running back Wes Hills. He was the leading rusher in 2023 in the USFL. He was with Memphis last year, or Michigan, excuse me. Kind of had a hard time getting going, but maybe Memphis, the team that's worse than the league at rushing the ball, this can jolt this backfield there with Wes Hills. So we did have some big news in the UFL there. We had some news where Samson Nakua, for those that did not see, Samson Nakua actually he threw I'm not going to call it a punch. He slapped a fan. And this was obviously a big deal. There's videos. You can check it out on my X. I'm not going to show the video, but basically him and a fan were arguing. There's alleged that the fan spit on him. That's not on video. You just see Samson Nakua arguing with him. He kind of reaches up and he slaps him, right? So this was kind of the slap heard around the UFL, around the world, right? Puka Nakua's older brother, Samson Nakua, Michigan Panthers wide receiver. He slapped a fan this week. He got a 1-game suspension for slapping that fan. You know, Obviously not a good look on the league, not a good look on the player for retaliate. There's been some speculation and some accusations that the fan spit on him. Obviously that's disgusting. No fan should be doing that. But as a player, you can't really retaliate like that. I think only a 1-game suspension is, all things considered, not that bad for Nakua. I think he got off a little bit easy there. Interesting precedent. Hopefully the league does not run into this again. But it looks like the Michigan Panthers will not have Samson Nakua because of that slap. Again, I encourage you to go check that out. I have it on my X, a video of him. Hey, he just slaps a fan after their loss, and fans either talking a whole bunch of shit or he does actually spit on them. Maybe both. I don't know. So I'm not here to really pass judgment. Just no Samson Nakua this week. Suspended without pay for 1 game. The Birmingham Stallions also cut quarterback Jamar Smith. That likely, I'm hoping that means that Mike Corral was back. He suffered a little bit of an injury 2 weeks ago. He was able to practice a little bit and was available as kind of like the emergency quarterback last week. So I'm assuming he's going to be good to go this week, which is great news for Birmingham, coming off a really bad loss to Memphis with Case Cook is unfortunately not looking so good. All right, that is the major news. Again, we've had, hey, Perkins finally the starter. You got some Memphis add some pieces there. Samson Nakua, slap heard around the world, and Jamar Smith back to being like a coach for Birmingham, and that likely means we're gonna get Matt Corral. And without further ado, let's get into the games this week, and we start with an absolutely fire game. Very, very nice game. We have the Arlington Renegades, the 3-2 Arlington Renegades, taking on the 3-2 St. Louis Battlehawks in the Battle Dome, in St. Louis, Missouri. 8 p.m. prime time, Friday Night Football. You got Arlington catching 3, -120. They are +130 on the money line. And you've got, obviously, St. Louis laying 3 at home, +100, -155 on the money line. You've got the over-under sitting at 42.5. So, What a great game. What a great game to start with. This is a massive, massive game for the standings in the XFL conference. Arlington's already beat St. Louis. They beat them in week 4 by a score of 15 to they scored 30 at home. St. Louis only scored 15. So they beat them by 15 at home. That was the game that Manny Wilkins did tear his Achilles in. So St. Louis did have to deal with a little bit of that abrupt quarterback change that they were not expecting. But Arlington really whooped them. Really, that was a pretty dominating win. Going into this week, it's obviously at home. You do have the Battle Dome, that home field advantage. Hopefully, no player fan interaction this week. But let's look at the injury reports. We do have the most kind of data points for the injury report with this game. We do get the Monday and Tuesday injury reports. So Arlington's pretty healthy. They've been really kind of knock on wood, lucky with health all year. But St. Louis, not as much. They've got 2 big names that have not practiced 2 practices in a row. Kind of doubtful that they're going to be able to play. The big one is defensive end Austin Fayalu. He is probably if not the best run stuffers in the UFL. When he went out against Michigan last week, St. Louis was in control of that game, and he went out and Michigan's offense started to explode. They could run up the middle for 5-10 yards anytime they wanted. That was not happening in the first half of that game before Fialo went out. Him not being on the field is a major blow to their rush defense. So that is a key one. Also, their starting tackle, Bushel Beatty there, he is dealing with an injury as well, not practicing, unlikely to play. So those are 2 big-time injuries on the offensive and defensive line there for St. Louis. Again, Arlington pretty healthy. Now, how I see this game going down. I like Arlington in their balanced offense right now. They have the leading rusher in the UFL in Kalen Balaj. They have the number 3 rush offense and the number 3 pass offense, leading to 4th in scoring offense. So they're a balanced offensive team. They also have the number 2 rush defense. They're a little bit more susceptible against the pass. They are number 6 against the pass, and then their 2nd scoring defense overall. Now, why I highlight their rush defense is because St. Louis is the number 1 rush team in the league, right? When, especially now that Abdul Beecham is back, that offensive line had some continuity. Now, Bushel Beatty is likely going to be out. So now we're talking about another shuffle of the offensive line, and you're going up against one of the best teams that stop the run in Arlington. And St. Louis, they are 7th in passing offense. Manny Wilkins went down. Max Duggan, he's a willing runner. He's a capable runner. He's not that great of a thrower right now. He's in the 2 games he's played. His downfield passing, his passing game is not something you want to write home about. It's not a highlight for them, so they're going to want to lean on the run. Well, when you're going up against the number 2 rush defense in the league, it's going to be a little bit more difficult, especially if you've got one of your starting linemen that's going to be out. Now, on the flip side, Arlington can run the ball. And I just talked about the injury to Fialu, who I think is going to have a massive impact. I do think Arlington is going to be able to have success both through the air and on the ground. I think that Arlington is going to try to force St. Louis to beat them through the air. Now, they did get back Akeem Butler, who had 2 massive touchdowns. That game was absolutely electric. Back and forth. Such a great game. Seriously, if you did not watch that Michigan Panthers St. Louis Battlehawks game, watch that game. It was an insane game. But anyway, Hakeem Butler is back, so that does open up the offense a little bit. But I think that's really the biggest threat. You got to stop Jacob Sailors and Max Duggan on 1st and 2nd down with their legs, and then you just got to play over the top, put 2 over top of Hakeem Butler. I think Arlington's going to be able to figure that out. I like Arlington +3. I like Arlington on the money line at +130 to win this outright. Again, they just beat this team 2 weeks ago, by 15 points. I don't think that much has changed. If anything, I think this Austin Fialu injury is going to have a massive impact. That the center of their defensive line, he is the cornerstone, the kind of stalwart. When he went out of that game, completely changed the flow. Michigan was able to do whatever they wanted with their offensive line. I think Arlington's going to have similar success. So give me Arlington in this first matchup here. All right, folks, we made it through the first game, and it looks like it's time for me to tell you about some of the great sponsors we have over here at IDP Plus. Starting off with Fast Draft Fantasy. That's right, Fast Draft Fantasy. It's in the name, folks. Start drafting faster. That's right. No worst thing is when you know exactly who you want to pick, but you're waiting behind, guys. You got to wait 60 seconds on the clock, 90 seconds on the clock, whatever it may be. So drafts take 20, 30 minutes. They're just so drawn out. You're excited for the first few picks, and then, oh boy, is this over yet? No. With fast draft, everything only has 20 seconds on the clock. All drafts are going to be over with under 10 minutes. They also have these cool boosters that allow for some flexibility up. So if you do a draft in April and things are going to change in the NFL, you can add these boosters and kind of make some creativity to your lineup where it's not just you draft and it's completely over. Plus, we can get you $50 free with the promo code plus DGenDoc. That's all one word, all caps, plus DGenDoc. Deposit $50, get $50 immediately scot-free. Also, want to tell you about some of the things we got going on over at idpplus.com. That's right, idpplus.com. We've got our biggest deal ever. With the promo code IDP2025, you'll get 50% off every subscription on the site. But you gotta act fast. This expires May the 1st. Once May the 1st is over, this promo is over. So get this as soon as you're hearing this. Get over to idpplus.com and use IDP2025. And finally, the best part about the offseason is the Fantasy Football Expo. Head on over to thefantasyfootballexpo.com and get your 2025 Expo tickets today. All right, folks, let's go ahead and wrap up the rest of this slate, get to our best bets, and get up on out of here. Going to the second game. Man, I'm telling you, this week the league was slacking a little bit. This last week has got me absolutely jacked up for this league. I think it's gonna be a great finish down the stretch here. Next game, also a massive implications in the USFL division. You've got Memphis and you've got Houston. Now, Memphis coming in at 1-4, Houston coming in at 2-3. This is suddenly, Michigan and Birmingham only are 3-2. So, they've only got a 2-game lead on Memphis, a 1-game lead on Houston. They're right in the mix of it. And this is going to be a huge game. The winner of this game is going to set them up very nicely to kind of have a shot at one of the two kind of contenders between Michigan and Birmingham. So you've got 1-4 Memphis hitting the road to take on these Roughnecks. They are catching 5.5. They are plus 205 on the money line. You got Houston laying 5.5 at home. Yes, that's right. Houston is the team that's favored. They are minus 250 on the money line. Over-under sitting at 36.5. This game kicks off at 12 Eastern time in Houston, Texas. Man, so they just played this game week 3. So 3 weeks ago they played it. Houston wound up winning 18-17. Memphis was in control of that game for much of the game. EJ Perry threw a terrible pick 6 and then threw another interception on back-to-back passes that really let Houston come back in it. That was when the game Nolan Henderson came in and kind of took the offense by storm, and they really rallied to be able to get that win. But Memphis really kind of let that slip through their hands. Now you can take some away from that, but we've got different quarterbacks on both sides of the ball that did not take a snap in that game at all. You have Jalen McClendon, who has absolutely come on, electric arm for Houston, commands the offense very well. How the hell was this guy quarterback number 3? We've kind of seen him bounce around the league. He was with DC last year. He was with Vegas 2 years ago. The Vegas Vipers, shout out to them. But he looks good. He looks like he has much more command than Anthony Brown, Nolan Henderson. And then on the Memphis side, Dresser Wynn comes in, but gives Memphis their first win, and their first win against a solid, the back-to-back defending champions of spring football, Birmingham Stallions. To go into Birmingham and get a win there and pull it out in overtime, that was a very impressive game by the Memphis Showboats, and especially Dresser Wynn there. So for this one, I think it's pretty simple here. I understand Houston has won 2 games this season. I understand they look like an improved unit, but CJ Johnson is still their coach, and they've still got a lot of the same issues they've had. I cannot lay 5.5 points. I cannot lay a touchdown with the Houston Roughnecks. Give me the Memphis Showboats plus 5.5. I like Memphis's. I think the addition of David Davis coming back to this wide receiver core that already has Jonathan Adams and D. Anderson, this might be the best wide receiver core in the UFL right now. I also like the fact that Houston's secondary has 6 guys on the injury report. So Houston in general right now, in their Monday practice, they had 6 players not practicing and 4 limited practicing. 5 of those players were defensive backs. Their secondary is beat the hell up. And I like Memphis again with that wide receiver trio and Dresser Wynn to be able to take advantage, at least keep it close. I do think they have a shot on the money line. Absolutely. This is a very big spread for two teams that I don't see. I mean, it was a 1-point game last time, and that took Houston pick 6 and quarterback who's not going to be on the field there. I think this is going to be a good game. Both of these defenses, Memphis is number 7 scoring defense, allowing 21.6 points. Houston is actually number 3 scoring defense, only allowing 17 points, but they are 7th against the rush, 4th against the pass. Again, the secondary is super beat up. They are going to have some guys missing. So I think that it opens up some opportunities for Memphis. I also like the over 36.5 in this game. You've got 2 quarterbacks that now actually look competent. This game was, again, 18-17. So 35 points, just under this 36.5 total last time. And we had much, much worse quarterback play. I think I think both these teams are going to be able to move the ball. Again, I've talked about Memphis's, they're adding to their wide receiver room. It's already a good room, and they're going up against the depleted Houston secondary. I think that's the key matchup here that I'm going to be honing in on. And I think Jalen McClendon, he's a guy that I can confidently say is going to be able to put up points. I don't know how many Houston quarterbacks you can say that with. So I think that allows for some type of a floor for Houston. I think they're able to put up some points, and I think Memphis is able to kind of make this a little bit of a shootout there. So I think it's going to be another entertaining game. I'm going to take Memphis with the 5.5 points there. I just think these teams are a lot closer to a field goal, or one, not a touchdown game, something a little bit closer there. I could see, either of these teams winning by, anywhere from 1 to 4 points. So give me Memphis plus 5.5 and give me the over 36.5. I think it's going to have a little bit more points than the Vegas expects there. All right, we're going to head over to Sunday. May the 4th be with you, to all my fellow Star Wars fans out there. This first game on Sunday, the DC Defenders, probably the game of the week if we had to pick one. At least, we've got the XFL division leader, and Michigan's tied for first in the USFL. So DC comes in at 4-1 to Michigan Sunday, 12 Eastern time. 4-1 DC Defenders take on the 3-2 Michigan Panthers. DC is catching 2.5 points at plus 100, plus 125 on the money line, and Michigan laying 2.5, minus 120, minus 150 on the money line. Over under sitting at 41.5. These teams have not played yet this season. Last time they played was week 7 of last year. Michigan put a beat down on DC 22-9. Now, obviously, 2 very, very, very different teams. Not a lot of continuity. There's some, but very, very different teams, I would say, at this point. So hard to really take away from last season at halfway through this season here. Where I'm at with this one, I think that the biggest takeaway from this game and potentially the rest of the season, Mike Nolan finally sees what everybody else with 2 eyes and has watched even a sliver of UFL football knows. Bryce Perkins is a UFL MVP caliber player right now. I think he's the best quarterback in the league. He absolutely gives Michigan the best chance to win, and he should get every single snap that he can. Now that he is the solidified quarterback number 1, and we don't have to worry about Danny Etling coming in, messing up the flow, taking a bad sack, throwing an interception, I am going to take Michigan at home. I'm going to take the team that, despite the worst record, they are favored. I'm going to take them as small favorites. Give me Michigan minus 2.5, minus 120. You have DC, who is very good against the pass. They're number one against the pass. They're number four against the rush. They are the number four scoring defense, giving up 19 points a game. Where you have Michigan, excuse me, they're the number two rushing team in the league, and they're the number two passing team in the league, and they're the number two scoring offense in the league. They are very balanced attack. They have a solid wide receiver room themselves. Despite Samson Nakua, he did get a couple reps. He's not really a key playmaker for them. I think they're going to be able to replace him with Devin Ross actually pretty easily. They've got three running backs with Nate McRae, Taoa, and Shadell that run really hard. And Bryce Perkins is the most electric player in the UFL right now. I am not going to be fading this team. DC, they are also a team that they kind of live and die by the big play. They just completed the largest comeback in UFL history. I think there might be a little bit of a letdown of kind of coming back from that there. I'm just not all the way bought in with this DC team yet. They do have the best pass offense. They have a meh rushing offense. They're number three scoring offense overall. Like I talked about, they're really reliant on the big play. Jordan Ta'amu, he is now willing to use his legs, which is a plus for them. Because when he is willing to add that to his game, it does have to. The defense obviously has to account for another factor there. But I like Michigan in this one. Really, I like Perkins better than Ta'amu. I think these teams they match up well. It's gonna be a competitive game. I think they're roster wise, talent wise, I think they're close. I think the loss of Ty Scott still from the wide receiver position for DC. I think the inaccuracy at times of Jordan Ta'amu and Bryce Perkins being able to start the entire game pushes me enough to Michigan. This was the hardest. This was the hardest game for me to handicap. I think by far. You've got Michigan's pass offense, one of the best in the league. DC's pass defense, the best in the league. Again, is DC going to be able to hit those big shots? We saw St. Louis was able to hit some big shots on Michigan last week. So I think this could be another back and forth game, which is why I'm going to go the over 41.5. Both these teams put up well over 25 points last week. They were lighting up the scoreboard there. Despite both these defenses at times being pretty good units, I think the offenses are a bit ahead of the defenses here. I talked about DC. Ta'amu, he's kind of a high reward, high risk kind of guy. He can have some turnovers at times, but he is going to be looking for the big play. He is not someone who likes to dunk and dime down the field. And then Bryce Perkins can he's lightning in a bottle. He can make electricity happen at any time, whether it's with his legs or with his arm. I really like how this team is running the ball, able to mix it up. They just have the defense on their heels at all times because number two rushing, number two passing. They're really clicking on all cylinders. So give me the over 41.5 there. All right, last game on the slate. We go to Sunday afternoon, 4 p.m. Eastern on May the 4th there. We've got the 1-4 San Antonio Brahmas taking on the 3-2 Birmingham Stallions. San Antonio catching 9 plus 350 on the money line. Birmingham laying 9 at home, minus 450. Over-under sitting at 37.5. Last time these two teams played was last season. They actually played in the UFL Championship where Birmingham beat them 25-0, I believe. But regular season-wise, they played in Week 9. San Antonio actually beat Birmingham 18-9, gave them their only loss of the season there. Both these teams are very, very different from last season. However, they might have a lot of the same players, but the makeup and just how these teams are trending, San Antonio, I believe, is the worst team in the league, which is absolutely shocking to me. Looking at their roster, they were one game away from winning it all. They brought back a ton of talent. They were supposed to improve the quarterback room, and clearly things have not worked out. This defense has regressed immensely. Like, they went from the number one unit to the worst unit by far, which I think is insane when you have mostly the same makeup of guys. I'm not sure what's going on there. San Antonio's got problems. They've got quarterback problems. They brought in Jarrett Garetano instead of Kellen Mond halfway through the game. I didn't think Kellen Mond was really having a bad game. He wasn't really doing much, but his offensive line was shit. They couldn't run the ball. His receivers were dropping things left and right. This offense was it was awful. And their San Antonio defense, they couldn't get off the field. And Houston, although Jalen McClendon's, he's an improvement from what they have, I don't think Houston is like world beaters. I mean, they're not. Like they're this offense, they couldn't get off the damn field. They lost in their home opener. They got embarrassed in front of 15,000 fans. Like this was not like, oh, they got caught sleeping, blah blah blah. Like they lost 27-3 in their home opener. They should have been psyched and ready to go. It's Fiesta, and they got absolutely embarrassed. So I do like Peyton Party as a coach, but there's something's wrong with this team. They are just not right. So obviously, probably tips my hand. But yeah, I'm going Birmingham. Give me Birmingham -9 here. I think Matt Corral returns. He's able to right the ship a little bit. Case Cookis did not look great against Memphis. I think whoever quarterback's in there, I do think it's going to be Matt Corral, but they're going to have a much easier day against the San Antonio defense. I think they're going to be able to really get whatever they want on offense. It's probably going to be an ugly game. But I think Birmingham, honestly, is going to blow them out, similar to what happened with Houston. I mean, Birmingham just beat Houston with McClendon at quarterback. I I don't see how San Antonio hangs. I know San Antonio got up and beat DC only 2 weeks ago, but they've got quarterback issues. They've got big time quarterback issues. They've got O-line issues. The defense can't stop anybody. And these drops, I mean, they have the most drops in the league by far. So they've got the worst scoring offense, only scoring 13.6 points per game. And they've got the worst scoring defense, allowing over 22 points a game. On the other side with Birmingham, although I do like them to cover the 9, I don't expect them to put up a ton of points. As far as give me something like a 17-3, 17-6 game, because they're only putting up 17 points a game. They have the number one scoring defense, so they're not allowing a lot of points, right? So that's why I don't expect San Antonio to get in the double digits, but it's not. Excuse me. It's not like they're lighting up the scoreboards anyway. They've got some things to figure out on offense still. That's really what's holding them back as opposed to last season when they were they were top defense, but their offense was the cream of the crop. Their offense has definitely taken a few steps back, and I think they've had some shuffling on the line. Obviously, quarterback 1 got hurt, quarterback 2 got hurt, so they're on quarterback 3. Again, I think Matt Corral, quarterback number 2, comes back in and gives this offense some stability. So give me Birmingham, but give me the under 37.5. Again, Birmingham, the number one scoring defense. San Antonio, the worst scoring offense. I think Birmingham is able to get out to a lead and be able to coast. Again, give me something like 17-3, 17-6, something of that matter. And I think Birmingham's able to handle them pretty easily at home, and it's probably going to be another boring game like San Antonio provided last week. All right, folks, that is all the games. So it's time for best bets. That's right, Doc's best bets for week 6. We're going to go right into it. Give me Arlington +3, -120. They're taking on a St. Louis team that is coming off a fresh win against Michigan. They were really aided by Mike Nolan's poor decision-making, a.k.a. letting Danny Edling able to touch the field. But Arlington is the healthier team. They just beat this team by 15 points. I think they're going to be able to establish the run with no Austin Fialu in the middle there for St. Louis. And I think that they're going to force St. Louis to try to beat them through the air, and I don't think Max Duggan is able to do that. They're going to put 2 over the top of Akeem Butler, and they're going to frustrate Max Duggan by hopefully using a spy, but he's not going to be able to just use his legs and win this game. So give me Arlington +3. Also, give me Memphis. I cannot lay 5.5 points with CJ Johnson. I understand Houston looks like an improved team, but so does Memphis. Dresser Wynn has stepped in nicely. The additions of Wes Hills and David Davis, I think, are going to give them some offensive firepower. I think this game is going to be a field goal game, 4-point game either way. I think they're live on the money line. Give me Memphis +5.5. And just as I was talking about, hey, we've got 2 fairly bad defenses. You got 2 quarterbacks that are now competent. Give me Memphis, Houston, all over 41 at +168. Both these teams just last week scored over 24 points. I think they're going to be able to let it fly a little bit. Defenses, especially Houston's secondary, is very beat up. And I think Memphis might have one of the best wide receiver cores in the UFL. So I think that's a matchup that I like for Memphis to be able to get some plays over the top. And then Jalen McClendon, I like his floor of being able to actually put up some points when you couldn't really say that about Nolan Henderson and Anthony Brown. So That's week 6, folks. That is how I see UFL week 6 breaking down game by game, and those are the bets. As always, this episode recorded Tuesday night, comes out Wednesday morning for you guys, so you can jump on the lines early. I know I like to get my bets in early. Once I'm able to kind of figure out, all right, who can I see is going to be mostly in, mostly out. A lot of the big names you can kind of figure out a little bit earlier, they're a little more well reported. And then before people, the public really starts flooding in to the UFL closer to Friday, I like to be able to get these lines in before they move too much. So that is, you'll always get these episodes out on Wednesday morning. And then because of the nature of the UFL and they're new to the prop game, that's going to be Friday. So Friday, I will try to have all of the games. Now, they're kind of being a little lackadaisical on their depth charts, which is leading the books to take a while. Last week, they didn't post until the day before for the Sunday game, so I had to kind of split it up. But either way, find me on X at the Degen Doc. I will post the official card for the player prop plays there. So sides and totals always going to be over here on YouTube, and then the props, player prop plays, anytime touchdown bets, things like that are going to be over on X at the Degen Doc. All right, folks, look, we're in the back half of the UFL season. It's time to start getting hot. It's time to start preparing ourselves for postseason playoff football, locking in, cashing some of these checks. I'm excited. I think this is going to be a great bounce back week. I think seeing the board very, very well as we start to see, hey, we finally know who's actually going to be at quarterback for these teams and maybe who's going to be the head coach. Knock on wood, nobody else leaves. But all right, folks, hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, we appreciate here at IDP Plus Bets. Any likes, comments, comment if you're different with me. I was chopping up with some people last week. They were saying, I don't know how you think, they were actually arguing in favor of Danny Etling and, not betting against Danny Etling. We'll see if he's back this week to see how that went. But yeah, chop it up with me in the comments if you disagree with something. I would love to hear your takes. Like, subscribes, all those things. As a new channel, we very much appreciate it. Check out all the other, IDP if you're into more fantasy NFL stuff. We're talking football 24/7. We're going to start doing our dynasty rankings. We did a bunch of the draft grades, reactions, stuff like that. So if you like football, you are in the right spot. All right, folks, that's enough for this week. So from the Degen Doc here at IDP Plus Bets, I am out of here.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.